Hello, everyone, and I'm so sorry I wasn't able to join you live earlier on. It's the summer solstice here and the winter solstice in Kuala Lumpur, and perhaps the energies of the world got the better of technology this morning for me. But I want to thank Sustainable Brands Kuala Lumpur for making it possible for me to join you, even though I'm recorded. I'm so pleased to be with you here today. But more than that, it feels an important time to be with you at this moment. There are dynamics and forces which are creating potential at the moment for greater destruction and evolution than has ever been possible. And yet, even with all the technology available to us, what we most deeply crave and long for is to belong, to be able to grow the sense of future potential and possibility, and to do that in a way that's contributing to a global phenomenon of regeneration and healing. We design the world around us from the way in which we think, and for so long we've thought in a way that has not been conducive to the conditions for life. We've thought in a story of separation, that nature's separate from humans, that we're not part of the unfolding story of life and intimately interconnected with it. We've told ourselves a story rooted in a great falsehood of I'm greater than you, you're less than me, separating humans from humans through hierarchy, racism, genderism, othering, all the way from racism through to nationality. So how shall we best heal this story of separation? Let me just share some of my slides with you, and let's explore that story together. So in regenerative development, design, and placemaking, we believe humans have a powerful role to play as participants in the evolutionary processes of life to harmonize once again the relationship between the natural world and the human system. And that all we have to do is remember what that is and build the capacity and the will to do it. And we believe that the best way for the human system and the natural system to harmonize once more is in place. Place is the only context in which the interface between the human system and the natural system is manageable, is concrete, something we can actually work with. We can feel and experience our places, what it's like to live in them. We can form coherent and systemic understandings of what makes a place work. The living systems or regenerative story that's emerging is a radical shift in how we see the world, which I believe gives us an important perspective on how we explore our relationship to place, the place source design, culture, and economies. If we follow the principles that have worked for 3.8 billion years, we can once again play a role which the living world is literally dying for us to play. Life creates the conditions conducive to life. And one of the most important ways in which it does that is by always looking forwards, always trying to create new potential rather than trying to solve problems. Our question is, how do we design places which regenerate life and do not extract from the potential of future generations? How can we make it possible for them to fulfill their true potential without it costing the earth? We have lots of problems to deal with. Problems are important. But when we're focused on problems rather than imagining the future we want, we are looking towards the past. Problems arise out of the past, and we're cleaning up what we did before. That's actually the essence of sustainability rather than regeneration, which is where life is moving forwards. In an entropic world, you patch up the cracks. In a living world, you're always moving to the next level of potential. It's what is inherent in a place and in a landscape. It's complete essence that wants to be expressed. So we can ask different questions when we work with potential to see how each place wants to express itself in its ecology and its economy and its culture. We might ask, what's the potential of my place to harmonize with nature, perhaps by bringing water and wildlife back into city centers, as they've done here in Chaoyong Plaza in Beijing? We might ask, what's the potential for this place to be somewhere where we can breathe? If that's our future regenerative goal, what are the interconnections between Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia and the systems in which you're nested, both ecological, agricultural, political, cultural, that contribute to poor air quality? And it's not just about technical solutions, though they help, but about partnerships with the very systems that we depend on for life in a new and different way. When we're motivated by future potential, we can think, how will we design and be determined to our transport systems? What carbon are we burning that pollutes the air? And how can we collaborate better with our neighbours to eradicate haze and play a role in the global food system that reduces its reliance on perhaps palm oil plantations and burning? What industries like bauxite or mineral mining contribute to water pollution? And how can we systemically move from a focus on these in our economies to life-enhancing manufacturing instead? We can ask, what is the potential for this place to elevate human potential, so that our focus becomes, we do whatever is necessary to increase the well-being, to increase our connections to others, and to express our true potential. If what our hearts desire in places is that all people can fulfill their true potential and live and work to their deepest essence, how much more motivated would we be to change our economic systems to deliver that? To change our education systems to focus not on competition and performance, but on well-being. If we can connect to our deepest essence, see that essence, the very spirit and uniqueness of other people, then we can do that for our places too. We can ask questions like, what is the potential for the city to be fully renewable, including its buildings? Kuala Lumpur has one of the tallest buildings in the world, and it's an icon. And here's a very different icon, Vienna's Ho Ho Tower, the first timber building prefabricated and assembled on site. 800 wooden columns made of Austrian spruce carry each floor. It's designed for passive house energy. Can we imagine the Petronas Twin Towers inspired by nature? Living systems are also whole. They work with wholes. There's something about any individual, any place and any system, a forest or an ocean tundra, that just is. Indigenous people and the late great Thich Nhat Hanh, for example, recognize that as interbeing. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And although in every whole there are parts, the aliveness of the whole is what is created by the relationships that happen between all of the different parts. A culture that builds identity through a mindset focused on parts increases division and separation. And we've all seen manifestations of that in the world. The Berlin Wall in Europe, Brexit in my home country, and its worst, genocide around the world. You are Kuala Lumpur, on all of its different districts. You're the Cameron Highlands, and yet you're more than that. You're Sabah and Sarawak, and you're more than just one part. If we can look at wholeness first, we can design the future in a different way, celebrating difference, encouraging togetherness, finding common ground, and designing common roles, and especially finding a role for the whole in the world. And in every place that's not the same. One of the worst things globalization has brought to our living communities is to treat everything as if it were the same everywhere. Bioregions, ecosystems, people, places, soils, economic systems, a Louis Vuitton or Gucci in every luxury mall and a pizza place everywhere. But we have to look at what is unique about each place, the core assets and the economic enterprises that have worked through time. If in each place, the core process is healthy, with healthy relationships between ecosystems and human systems, we have a world where the sum total of health is also differentiation of culture. What might we do differently? We might choose to restore wildlife corridors that have been fragmented into parts over time. We might restore grasslands or bring trophic cascades into health again that restore biodiversity over time. We might create more unique protected marine habitats so that our oceans can become whole again. I was lucky enough to work on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa many, many years ago. And when Nelson Mandela and Bishop Tutu saw a future vision of the then divided nation, they first saw a rainbow, all people, all colours, all creeds, all South Africans. And so if we see people as whole, we don't see racism, sexism or genderism, and we can then create places that are whole and healthy. What would that mean for you? Life is also evolutionary and developmental. For 3.8 billion years, the story of life has changed from single-celled organisms to multi-celled organisms through mitochondria, sponges, complex coral reefs, fish, reptiles, dinosaurs, birds, mammals to humans. From the caterpillar, who transforms totally its DNA to something so completely new and beautiful, a butterfly, life's core process is to develop new complexity and to evolve and transform. In Malaysia, you of course know your own story far better than I do, but in preparing for this talk, I felt I could see an evolving story of Malaysia, seeing patterns of the landscape, economy and culture that are woven across the rich tapestry of history, rich core deep patterns that mark out something unique about you that could lift up a future role you play in creating life in your place. Your ability to shift from commodities to industrial agriculture, to adapt through fossil fuel mining, to a new development policy that you've launched, to a finance and electronic economy. Your ability to seemingly, as an outsider to its view, absorb different cultural perspectives, religious groups and architectural structures, Malay, Chinese, British even, Indian, Muslim, Catholic and Hindu. It's a multicultural heritage that many crave but can't deliver. The next evolution in human systems must be towards achieving potential of all interconnected living systems. So what role might you choose to play as a sustainability community in that? And why is the role important? What's the next evolution of your place? Roles are important because living systems are nested in relational. You can't play a role in a dead system. Nations and cities can play a role in living systems, like the clownfish and anemone here. They have a mutually reciprocal relationship. Both depend on the other for their own systemic health. The clownfish for protection from predators, the anemone for oxygenation of the water to enrich its feeding stream. Both are interdependent on their ecosystem. The health of the reef on which they depend, the health of the ocean in which they're nested. Kuala Lumpur is nested in a bioregion, which is nested in the South China Sea and the Andaman Sea. Their health is your health, their resilience is your resilience. Life evolves and develops not on a global scale, but within ecosystems and distinct bioregions. The greatest change and creativity and evolution happens at the edges, where two distinct ecosystems meet. When we recognize that, we can look differently at how we might design our regional economies. We can focus on regional food security rather than on export, and on regional health and well-being. It suggests to us that working locally, but in a global context, might be a better approach to creating thriving places. So what is the innovation edge for Malaysia, which would create greater conditions for all life for you? Could you be, as I see you as, a weaver of cultures and economies, catalyzing future potential, a culture of independent togetherness, which is something that I experienced when I was last there? Life also values uniqueness and diversity. In each of the ecosystems and bioregions, there's a unique pattern of biology that exists. And within that system, there's infinite variety that keeps the system healthy. Yellowstone Park, for example, is a unique ecosystem that was almost destroyed when the people who lived there shot the last wolf in the 1920s, which has now been restored to its previous system of health once the wolf was reintroduced. Life also has flows and rhythms. It wastes nothing, it's circular, it's seasonal, and it moves with convergence, divergence, and emergence. How do we design to waste nothing? It suggests to us again that we should look at localized food systems, circular cities, and as they are doing here in Los Angeles, to encourage gangster gardening, where everybody who lives in a place is encouraged to grow their own food in communities in every neighborhood of every part of every city and every village, bringing life, growth, and nature back into our towns and cities. It suggests to us that we should work with the processes of life rather than against them. Here is the Maitsenkerling in the Netherlands, which is what we do when we bring force to try to control the flows of nature, as Holland is a country that lives mostly below the sea level. So it has an intimate relationship with managing water as the seas rise. But also in the same place, which is Rotterdam, the city of Rotterdam, their local mayor has taken a different approach to placemaking and to water ingress. So in particularly poor neighborhoods, what they have built are many ways in which water can be collected and pooled through garages, through water parks, that have revitalized community spirit and made places more interesting and attractive for people to live in, whilst at the same time allowing for floodwater to be managed, recycled, and reused for the benefit of the community in place. Life also works in fields of energy connected by nodes. It's organized in patterns of energy influence. So how do we even begin to think about how we should work with nodal interventions, finding the key spots in our places where we can create change for health, for well-being that is systemic? One of the people who succeeded most beautifully with this, who sadly passed last year, was Jaime Lerner in Curitiba. He created a process called urban acupuncture, transforming the city of Curitiba from a place that was full of plastic, full of rubbish, unvital, unviable as a city over time, by looking at the key spots in his city where he could create interventions, like putting a rapid bus transport system in, where there was shade and places where people who were waiting for the buses could be out of the powerful noonday sun, where he created silent architecture, such as you see in front of you, from recycled wood and recycled construction materials all over the place, that created spaces for people to gather in and culture to emerge. In the city of Curitiba, there is over 50 square meters of green space per person. Or it might be like creating social acupuncture to revitalize a neighborhood, like this microgrid village, which is in Hawaii, that has been built to be as highly eco-friendly, regenerative as it can, but it has been built for homeless people to live in. Or even the concept of the 15-minute city, where we look at existing city infrastructure like Paris, or even older cities than that, and try to make it possible for people to be able to access everything that they need for a thriving life within 15 minutes. Water, parks, greenery, food. These are some of the ways in which we can design regenerative places. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to be with you live today to answer some of your questions, but I hope you will have enjoyed this very brief and speedy visit to the principles of life and how we use them to think about how we can design regenerative places all around the world that create the conditions conducive to life, place by place by place, one place at a time. I hope to be with you one day live, and hopefully there'll be a time in the session where I can come back and answer some of your questions. In the meantime, thank you for spending the last 20 minutes with me, and I wish you a wonderful midsummer and midwinter.